So thank you again for tuning in, and we will commence our presentation now. Thank you. Catherine? Hello?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's stakeholder consultation. This morning, we will be discussing the project, the establishment of an 88-meter-long guide jetty as an extension to the existing jetty to allow for the safe berthing and mooring of the inter-island fast ferry at the Scarborough port. On the agenda this morning, we will have an introduction to the Ministry of Works and Transportation by NICO. We'll be discussing the purpose of the meeting. We will have an introduction of the project, as well as discuss the project objectives. This will also be done by NICO. An introduction of the project team, which will be done by CEP. We will be discussing the stakeholder consultation process. We will then be viewing a presentation of the conceptual design of the project. The construction considerations will follow. We will then move on to the potential environmental impacts, mitigation measures, and monitoring. And this will be done by MORPH. And finally, we will open the discussion to all participants today so that we can have our stakeholder feedback. Let us just have a brief overview as to who NICO is. The National Infrastructure Development Company is a special purpose state enterprise which was established by the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago in 2005. NICO develops and implements large-scale physical infrastructure projects in the transportation, water management, land and environmental protection subsectors. The primary services provided by the company are procurement management, project management, and management of marine transportation services, which includes the
Can't do that because then I will get feedback. Can't do that, otherwise you get feedback. Still not hearing audio. Let me see.
What happened?
I'm not hearing the audio. China? Put it on here now.
No.
So if you mute here and put the audio there, it will make the difference?
It should, but you would definitely need to read.
Yeah.
But I do get feedback. I don't know how. I have my thing muted here as well, so. Sorry.
So the video not playing on YouTube.
And this is in an effort to increase the berthing infrastructure at the port. NICO was appointed by the ministry to act as the employer. CEP Limited was engaged by NICO to provide all the necessary engineering design services for the development of the conceptual designs for the guide jetty. We will be sharing information and creating awareness of the project among our key statutory and regulatory stakeholders so that we can open lines of communication with you. to increase the berthing infrastructure at the port. The proposed site for this project will be at the southern end of the existing quay wall at the port of Scarborough, which is due east of the cruise ship jetty. Now let's look briefly at the goals of the project, which are: 1, to increase the berthing infrastructure at the port; 2, to provide a conceptual design for a guide jetty at the Scarborough port; and 3, to provide an assessment of all the potential environmental impacts. And now we would like to hand over the rest of the presentation to CEP Limited. And the introduction, the presentation will be done by Catherine Arjun, who is the design consultant on the project.
Good day all. My name is Catherine Arjun. I am the project engineer from CEP Limited. CEP Limited was awarded the contract for the conceptual design of the guide jetty at Scarborough Port in Tobago by NICO. Today I will be introducing CEP Limited and its team of sub-consultants. First, I will start with giving you all a brief history of CEP Limited. So CEP was founded in 1955 by a British engineer, Mr. David Key. Mr. Key decided to sell the company in 1973 to Local. Now CEP is fully owned and managed by nationals of Trinidad and Tobago. Currently, CEP consists of project managers, civil engineers, and structural engineers who have a collective experience of over 150 years. CEP's staff consists of 33 employees, 14 engineers, 9 technical staff, and 10 administrative staff, who are all full-time employees. CEP Limited's business management system is registered in conformance with the ISO 9001 Quality Management System, a certification which is not attained by many local/regional firms in the engineering industry. Our company is also compliant with the STOTT, or the Safe to Work Certificate of Conformance. So here we have a chart showing CEP's project portfolio, which details the services of CEP Limited. So currently CEP provides the following services. We have FIDIC engineering services, construction management, civil engineering, structural engineering, and project management. CEP has worked on several recent projects in the coastal engineering field. These are the Captiville Shoreline Stabilization Works, the Magdalena, Grand Beach, and Gulf Resort Breakwater System in Tobago, and the Coastal Management Solution at Lady Hills Avenue, San Juan. So now I'd like to introduce our project team for the guide jetty at Scarborough Port project. So on this slide, you will see the organizational chart for the project. At the top of the chart, we have NIDCO, who is the employer. Then we have CEP Limited, who was awarded as a design consultant. The project director of CEP Limited is Mr. Harinarai Miraj, and the project engineer, myself, Catherine Arjun. Our team of sub-consultants include Zealand Civil Engineering Consultancy Limited, led by Mr. Richard Flick, who is the coastal/marine engineer. We also have Morph Engineering Limited, led by Mr. Rivon Ganesh, who is the environmental specialist / coastal modeler. We also have our HSC and waste management consultant, Mr. Guy Ramter. And lastly, our environmental scientist, Mrs. Dalla Haripol Ganesh. Now I would like to hand you over to Mrs. Ganesh, who will be presenting the stakeholder consultation process.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dalla Haripol Ganesh, and I am an environmental scientist tasked with facilitating the stakeholder consultation process for this CC application. This stakeholder consultation process is being engaged via online for the most part as a result of the current COVID-19 pandemic. As we know, restrictions have not been fully lifted, and we are, for most part, out of an abundance of caution, adhering to the current regulation in the consultation.
Fulfilling the environmental authorities require 5 of the requests for information to public consult utilizing social media on being today. But also 2 focus groups, one with the land at the as well as the other with the assembly representatives.
An initial scope on shooting exercise, insight into the current users of the area, of the proposed area, as well as stated in the project outline and background. Those who will be impacted in the immediate area is traditional users and fisherfolk. A survey document was used in this process to obtain feedback, and discussions and/or comments were duly noted. The approach for conducting the public consultations in gathering and minuting and compiling the stakeholder engagement report, the SAR, outlined as follows. Identification of key stakeholders and current users of the planned area of the proposed project. Also, related documents were lodged at business places or other accessible locations within the community for public comment at least 2 weeks prior to the set date of the consultations, as well as conducting meetings with key stakeholders, including statutory and advisory agencies where applicable. These include so far the relevance of the TH, as the Division Infrastructure and Urban Environment, TEMA, Tobago Emergency Management, Coast Guard, Tobago Police in the Scarborough area. Comments, questions, or statements are being guarded other requirement to NIDCO, and subsequently a plan of in conjunction with the applicant NIDCO of the project implementation and operation is all the SAR. Reports would be considered. And this brings me to the section of the presentation today.
Good day, everybody. My name is Richard Flick from Zealand Civil Engineering Consultancy Limited, the marine consultant as part of CEP's project team. The next few slides, just want to run through our presentation of the conceptual design of the proposed inter-island jetty. So the consultant team's scope of works called for the design of the marine infrastructure to facilitate, shown in the slides. Slide length of 74 meters, overall beam or width of 22 meters, and a design draft of just under 3 meters. These specs were provided to the team by NITCO, specifically to cater for the designs required. So the proposed structure actually is going to be very similar to the cruise ship jetty, the existing cruise ship jetty, just to the west, right? Namely, it's going to be an open pile structure with a series of a number of bathing and mooring dolphins with intermediate walkways. Now, unlike the existing cruise ship jetty that has a full width concrete deck walkway, we propose a narrower catwalk structure, steel catwalk structure that you'll see in the following slide, to span between the dolphins. Now, passengers will board and disembark from the stern of the vessel by the existing ferry ramp. All right, so the main advantage of this type of structure is that it has the least interference with the existing hydrodynamic environment, right? So waves and currents, they're not really affected by the piles that support the structure, given the openness. Given the draft of the island ferry of just under 3 meters, which is about 10 feet, there won't be any requirement for dredging in the project site, as the water depths they are sufficient. So the overall length of the proposed guide jetty is just around 300 feet. 4 dolphin structures with intermediate walkways that will be only for Port Authority staff and personnel when they have to moor the vessel and also to let go ropes. Each mooring dolphin will have pole-mounted solar lights and of course fender and bollards. So this is just a side view of what's envisaged here, the proposed structure. You can see the catwalks that span between the heavier pile dolphin structures. So the design intent is that when the ship comes alongside, the forces, the braking forces and the mooring forces are resisted by the heavy pile dolphin structures. The walkways are just accessories to allow the access to port personnel, right? So for this overall scope, we envisage a 6-month construction duration on site, and it'll be built primarily using floating equipment like a crane barge. The boundaries of the project are actually shown here. It's going to be very limited to the construction zone. Of course, we are aware of the Coast Guard and fishing port to the east, and also the existing port operations, which we seek to minimize interference with, of course. Great. So I'm just going to briefly touch on some of the construction aspects of this project. I would previously have mentioned that this project will be executed using floating plants and equipment, right? So as it is now, there are challenges with respect to the location of the site and access to heavy plants and machinery. This project will require specialist equipment to install the piles, and this will be executed using floating plants and equipment, namely a crane barge, with on-site storage of piles and other major components being done within the Port Authority compound or on the barge if additional storage space is needed. In terms of the major construction tasks required, surveying and positioning of the pile locations would be paramount. It's very important that this be done accurately and at the start of the project. Once all the surveys and positioning is completed, then the next step will be to install the piles to the dolphin structures, right? And those piles will be lifted and placed via the crane barge and using a piling hammer to send it into the ground. Right now, for the dolphins themselves, the pile caps for the dolphins will be done using ready-mix concrete via pump and ready-mix trucks, which more than likely will have to be loaded onto the barge. The steel catwalks that will be spanning in between the dolphins to allow for access to the port personnel for mooring and untying of vessels will be prefabricated off-site at the contractor's facility and then transported to the site via sea, by the barge for lifting into place. Right, and the last stage would then require the installation of the bollards, fenders, and lighting. Now, given that this project is going to be tendered out as a design build, the design builder will be required to submit his detailed methodology and work schedule prior to commencement of work, which also is a requirement of the certificate of environmental clearance that we would have obtained for this project. In terms of estimated timelines for construction, we envisaged that the procurement and off-site preparation works and prefabrication could take up to 2 months. Actual on-site piling works per dolphin could take up to 3 weeks per dolphin. And as a reminder, there are 4 dolphins to be installed. And formwork and concrete per dolphin, we believe, could be done within 2 weeks, with therefore a total construction time of 6 months on site. So these images just illustrate the type of equipment that we expect will be used for construction of the project. The left image shows a crane barge. The right image shows the same a barge being used for loading the ready-mix concrete trucks onto, as well as a pump to facilitate the placement of the concrete. So we expect that this will also be a requirement for this project. Of course, this project will be implemented and constructed in accordance with the requirements of all the statutory approvals, and specifically the conditions in these as set out in the Certificate of Environmental Clearance, the CEC, the relevant OSH guidelines and requirements, as well as safe systems to work. So this brings me now to the end of my section of the presentation, and I'd like to hand you over now to my colleague Rivan Ganesh, who's going to further elaborate on the environmental aspects of this project. Thanks.
Good day, everyone. I am Rivan Ganesh of Morph Engineering Limited, and today I'll be discussing the potential environmental impacts of this project, also the mitigation measures to address these impacts, and some of the planned monitoring activities to take place during and after construction. In determining the impacts for this project, we examined 2 major parameters, which are stability and waste management. And this was both for the construction phase and the operations phase. So during construction, some piling work is expected to take place at the foundation, which will create minor sediment plumes, and this will be noticeable on the seabed. This will, however, have no impact on the marine life within Rockville Bay or the general port area. There will also be generation and disposal of waste material during the construction, and this will be guided by our waste management plan, which will be discussed in more detail later on. We examined the socio-economic impacts of this project on the nearby port operations and the fisher folk, and we determined that the construction of this new jetty extension will have no negative impacts on the nearby Scarborough Fishing Depot operations or the port operations, as all marine traffic will directly be controlled by the Port Authority. We also examined the cumulative impacts of this project, and we looked at a possible future scenario. This information was received from the THA, and it's an illustration of the Scarborough redevelopment project, which includes plans for a fully upgraded port, as illustrated below. As you can see, most of the works planned will take place on the western side of the port, and nothing is immediately planned in the area of the planned jetty extension. Because of the nature of construction and the piled substructure of the jetty, there will be no impacts on these planned works because waves and currents will not be impacted, and also sediment transport patterns within the bay will not be altered. There will therefore be no further erosion or accretion anticipated at these new shoreline structures. Also, impacts are not expected on operation of the port upgrades because of the location of the planned jetty extension. Significant coastal impacts were assessed by use of a wave model called Mike 21. It was determined that because of the substructure design of the jetty, that there will be no significant impacts on the nearby shoreline east or west of the project. This model showed that the oceanographic environment will also remain unchanged. The new jetty extension will actually reduce the incoming wave energy on the nearby structures, and this has zero potential for shoreline sediment transport. Therefore, no further erosion or accretion is expected because of the construction. And because no major changes to the seabed bathymetry is expected, there will exist no potential for shoreline change east or west of the site. In determining the mitigation measures for turbidity, we plan to implement the use of turbidity screens or sill curtains, which will be placed around the work zone. This will limit the amount of sediments that will be entrained in the nearshore zone and will also reduce the impacts of suspended sediments on the receiving marine environment. This method will seek to effectively control turbidity and will not negatively impact on any of the port operations or the nearby fishing depot operations. The proposed turbidity screens can be seen here in yellow, and you'll also see the dimensions. There's an entrance to the work zone, and these sill curtains will be attached to a flotation device and anchored on the seabed. The material will be non-permeable, so any sediment that is entrained because of piling will not leave the work zone. During the construction phase, a detailed waste management plan will be implemented by the contractor, and this plan will be guided by the EME. Certain guidelines will be published before construction, and all involved parties will be made aware of certain procedures that are to be followed during construction in disposing of any dangerous materials, hazardous and non-hazardous waste. It is, however, anticipated that no hazardous waste is to be generated from this project and the construction. During the operational phase, the Port Authority will be responsible for all waste disposal on the jetty. So some of the specific measures to be implemented on the waste management plan will include ensuring of responsibilities for all personnel by proper induction, which will be done by the HSC officers on site, ensuring compliance with the EMA permits, proper understanding of the type of work to be conducted, and HSC officers on site will also ensure that there is proper storage of waste with minimal impact on the environment by providing properly labeled bins, and contractors should also ensure that there is proper disposal of the waste by the use of licensed contractors only. So during construction, the turbidity will be continuously monitored on a weekly basis at the zone of construction. This will be done by the use of TSS or total suspended solid probes, which will ensure that the turbidity levels are within acceptable levels or in accordance with the EMA water pollution rules. Turbidity will be measured at two locations, one up current and one down current, which we will see in the next slide. Turbidity levels will also be compared to the baseline levels, which will be measured before construction. This will all be done by the HSC officers on the contractor's team, and they will be responsible for monitoring and reporting any non-compliance to all parties involved. Also, prior to construction, two baseline beach profile stations will be established, and these will be measured on either side of the port. This will also be compared to post-construction profiles, which will be done monthly for at least a 3-month period. And this will help in assessing any morphological changes to the shoreline. So this image shows the location of our monitoring stations. The yellow dots are the beach profile stations, one on the western side and one on the eastern side of the jetty. And the red dots are the turbidity stations, one down current location and one up current location. And as mentioned before, the purpose of these stations are to ensure that the CEC is complied with and that some baseline level is established before construction, and we are able to compare this after construction to ensure that there is no negative changes due to construction. And that's it for my section. Any questions will be welcome now. Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's stakeholder consultation. This morning, we will be discussing the project, the establishment of an 88-meter-long guy jetty.
Okay, we apologize for that. Right, so we thank you for okay. We welcome your questions, comments, and we'll also.
I think most persons on your team should be familiar with that in the context of informing OSHA so that we can do the requisite monitoring of the project as it progresses over the 6 months. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in addition to that, we will also require some schematics or drawing of the actual project as well, so that it will form part of the submission of the documentation for approval from our particular agency.
Okay, duly noted, and we'll seek to comply with all statutory requirements during this period.
Okay. Okay then. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. We would also like you to note any following this public consultation, any feedback